Front and center at President Trump's inauguration, a lineup of billionaire tech titans led by the world's richest man, Elon Musk, now a top Trump advisor.
Each of these tech billionaires donating $1 million to the Trump inaugural fund as they aim to win favor over Trump.
They now control the media so that they can tell working class people, no. Billionaires aren't the enemy. It's the gays, the trans, it's the immigrants, it's the brown people. Don't focus on us, focus on them.
But over a long period of time, I still expect that there will be some change required to the social contract. The whole structure of society itself will, be up for some degree of debate and reconfiguration.
Picture this. You're scrolling through your feed, and suddenly, an ad for something you just mentioned pops up. Creepy, right? Well, you're not alone in feeling uneasy about big tech's power. China felt the same way, and they did something about it. They took on Alibaba, one of the world's largest e-commerce platforms, and won. Now, you might be thinking, so what? China's just being authoritarian again. But hold on, their approach to regulating big tech might actually be solving problems that the West is struggling with. Income inequality, data privacy, fair competition, and as we dive deeper, we'll see how these actions are sending ripples across the global tech landscape. It's 2020. Alibaba is the undisputed king of China's tech world. They're an empire, reaching into every corner of Chinese life. From online shopping to digital payments, Alibaba's influence is everywhere. In charge, Jack Ma, the richest man in China, has a net worth of $60 billion. But Ma doesn't know it yet. He is on the edge, and the ground under him is about to collapse. Alibaba's dominance is staggering. They control over 50% of China's e-commerce market, dwarfing even the combined might of Amazon, eBay, and Walmart in the West. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Ant Group, Alibaba's fintech arm, processes trillions in payments annually. They're becoming China's financial system. Let's talk about how this affects everyday Chinese citizens. Imagine using a single app to order groceries, pay bills, invest in stocks, and even schedule a doctor's appointment. That's the reality for millions of Chinese using Alibaba's ecosystem. It's convenient on steroids, but it comes at a price. Your data. Alibaba knows everything about its users. What you buy, where you go, how much money you have in your digital wallet. They've got it all. It's like Facebook and Google combined, but with even more reach. And while Western tech giants face scrutiny over data privacy, Alibaba operates in a different playing field. Now, here's where things get wild. Ant Group is gearing up for a $34 billion IPO, the biggest in history. Investors are salivating, eager to get a piece of this action. It's like the dot-com boom all over again, but supercharged. But wait, there's more. While Alibaba's growing at breakneck speed, economic inequality in China is skyrocketing. You've got Jack Ma and his tech buddies sitting on mountains of cash, while the average citizen struggles to make ends meet. It's a tale as old as time, but in China, it's happening at hyperspeed. The Chinese government is watching all of this unfold, and they're getting nervous. They're seeing Alibaba's power grow day by day, and they're thinking, who's really in charge here? It's like watching a giant balloon inflate. You know it can't keep growing forever without popping. Here's the kicker. All of this, Alibaba's unstoppable growth, Jack Ma's soaring wealth, the widening inequality, the data privacy concerns, it's all building up to something big. Something that's going to shake the foundations of China's tech world and send shockwaves around the globe. And it all starts with one speech. One moment where Jack Ma, flying too close to the sun.
好的创新不怕监管，但是怕昨天的方式去监管。我们不能用管理火车站的方法去管理飞机场，不能用昨天的办法来管未来。监和管不一样，政策和文件也不一样。今天这个不许，那个不许，那都叫文件。政策是机制建设，是激励发展。今天全世界，特别是中国，需要很多的政策专家，而不是文件专家。
He's not just criticizing global banking rules, he's taking aim at China's own regulators. It's a direct challenge to the status quo, and the room is electrified. The reaction is immediate and intense. On Chinese social media, Ma's speech spreads like wildfire. Some hail him as a visionary, others as a madman. But behind closed doors, regulators are seething. Dr. Victor Shah, an expert on Chinese politics and finance, explains, in China's political context, Ma's words weren't just controversial. They were potentially dangerous. He was challenging the party's authority over economic matters, a red line in Chinese politics. The consequences are swift and severe. Ant Group's massive IPO? Suspended. Jack Ma vanishes from public view. The message is crystal clear. No one is above the party's authority. But this isn't just about putting Jack Ma in his place. It's a turning point in China's relationship with its tech giants. Just 2 years earlier, these companies were celebrated as national champions. Now, they are being closely watched. What happened next was a complete overhaul of China's digital economy, and it affected everyone from tech giants to the average citizen. Let's start small and build up. In early 2021, China introduced new data privacy laws. Suddenly, tech companies had to ask permission before collecting user information. It was the first sign of trouble. Then came the gaming restrictions. Kids under 18 were limited to just 3 hours of online gaming per week. Gaming companies saw their user base shrink overnight. But that was just the beginning. The education tech sector was next. The government banned profit-making in core subject tutoring, and billions in market value vanished. Companies that had been riding high on China's competitive education system found themselves scrambling for survival. Then came the big guns. Alibaba, China's e-commerce giant, was hit with a $2.8 billion fine for antitrust violations. But the fine was just the start. They were told to rectify their behavior, meaning no more forcing merchants to choose between Alibaba and its competitors. Ant Group, Jack Ma's fintech giant, felt the heat too. Their IPO, set to be the biggest in history, was cancelled. But it didn't stop there. Ant Group was ordered to completely restructure, transforming from a high-flying tech company into a tightly regulated financial holding company. The ripple effects were massive. Didi, China's answer to Uber, found itself under investigation just days after its US IPO. But here's where it gets interesting. While these actions might seem harsh, they're also addressing issues that the West is struggling with. Income inequality? China's Common Prosperity Initiative is tackling that head-on. Data privacy? They've got new laws for that. Fair competition? They're breaking up monopolies left and right. And all of this is happening while China's economy continues to grow. China's tech crackdown isn't just about taming giants like Alibaba and Tencent. It's a calculated move to reshape the entire digital economy. Let's dive into the complex web of reasons behind this seismic shift in China's tech landscape. Political power is a factor, but there's more to it than keeping billionaires in check. China's playing a long game, focusing on stability, prosperity, and control. Financial stability is a major concern. Tech companies were acting like banks without proper regulations, handing out loans without proper risk assessment. The government saw this as a potential disaster waiting to happen, one that could trigger a financial crisis worse than the 2008 meltdown. Income inequality has been skyrocketing in China. The tech boom created a handful of ultra-wealthy individuals, while leaving millions behind. This widening wealth gap threatens social stability and economic health. Data is another crucial aspect. China sees it as a strategic asset that needs to be under government control. That's why they passed a law requiring companies to store all Chinese user data within the country's borders. China's not just playing defense, though. They're reshaping their entire economy under the banner of common prosperity. This fundamental shift aims to spread wealth more evenly and rein in tech giants as part of that strategy. Interestingly, China believes that breaking up these tech monopolies will actually spur more creativity and competition. They're betting that by leveling the playing field, they'll create space for the next generation of tech innovators. China wants the benefits of a dynamic tech sector, innovation, economic growth, and global competitiveness. But they're determined to avoid the downsides they've seen in the West. the concentration of wealth and power, the social disruption, the loss of government control over key sectors of the economy and society. In the United States, Amazon controls over 40% of the e-commerce market, while Alibaba, its Chinese counterpart, holds about 50% of China's online retail sales. Both giants dominate their respective markets, but the regulatory approaches couldn't be more different. In the US, tech titans like Amazon, Google, and Facebook are growing at an unprecedented rate. Their influence extends far beyond just market share. These companies are actively shaping the conversation in Washington, spending over $100 million on lobbying in 2022 alone. That's more than some countries' entire economies. But here's the thing. While these companies are getting bigger and bigger, the efforts to control them are very slow. Congress holds hearings, brings in tech CEOs, asks tough questions, and everyone watches the spectacle. But when the dust settles, not much changes. Let's talk about antitrust for a second. In China, we saw regulators crack down hard and fast on companies like Alibaba. But in the US, it's a different story. There's plenty of talk about breaking up big tech, but action is slow to follow. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what about data privacy? Surely that's under control, right? Well, not exactly. The European Union has its GDPR, which gives users more control over their personal data. But in the United States, it's still pretty much the Wild West. Tech companies are collecting data, and users are often left in the dark about what's being gathered and how it's being used. Income inequality is another problem that big tech has made worse. The pandemic made tech billionaires even wealthier, while many others struggled to make ends meet. These companies aren't just lobbying, they're pouring millions into political donations, spreading their bets across both sides of the aisle. It's a smart strategy. No matter who wins, they've got friends in high places. So, what does this mean for innovation? Well, it's complicated. On the surface, it looks like the tech sector is booming with new ideas, but dig a little deeper and you'll see a troubling pattern. Big tech companies often just buy up smaller, innovative firms. It's not about fostering competition, it's about swallowing it whole. Imagine if every time a new restaurant opened with an exciting menu, it immediately got bought out by a fast food chain. That's essentially what's happening in tech. Now, let's talk about workers in the gig economy. Companies like Uber and DoorDash have created a whole new class of workers, but these workers are fighting an uphill battle for basic rights. The companies resist calls to treat them as employees, arguing that flexibility is more important than benefits or job security. Social media's impact on democracy and mental health. It's a hot topic, but meaningful regulation is slow to come. We're seeing real-time experiments on how these platforms can shape public opinion, influence elections, and even affect our cognitive processes. Remember when we thought social media would usher in a new era of democratic participation? Well, it turns out it's also become a breeding ground for misinformation and polarization. So, how can we make sense of all this? On one hand, the US approach has allowed for incredible innovation and economic growth. These tech giants have created products and services that have changed our lives in profound ways. But on the other hand, we're seeing the downsides of unchecked corporate power playing out in real time. How can the world learn from China's tech crackdown without simply copying their approach? China's swift and decisive action is the first thing that stands out. When they saw problems with their tech giants, they didn't waste time with endless debates. They moved fast, tackling issues head-on with a comprehensive approach. They didn't just focus on monopolies or data privacy. They addressed everything simultaneously. It's a stark contrast to the slow-moving regulatory processes we often see in other countries. This comprehensive strategy showed that governments can indeed stand up to big tech. China effectively said, "You might be worth billions, but we're still in charge." It's a powerful message in a world where tech giants often seem to have outsized influence over politicians. Following China's lead, India, for instance, has been tightening regulations on foreign tech companies, clearly influenced by Beijing's bold moves. It's a domino effect, with one country's actions sparking changes across borders. In Europe, there's a renewed energy around tech regulation. The Digital Markets Act and Digital Services Act are moving forward with increased momentum. China's actions have emboldened European regulators to push ahead with their own plans to rein in big tech. They're thinking, if China can do it, so can we. Even in the United States, where tech giants have long enjoyed relatively free rein, China's crackdown is stirring debate. Some politicians are pointing to China as an example of how to tackle big tech. It's a strange twist, the US looking to China for regulatory inspiration. But it shows just how much China's actions have shifted the global conversation. Global investors are feeling the heat too. Chinese tech stocks listed in the US have lost their luster. Investors are reassessing risks, realizing that the rules of the game can change overnight. It's a wake-up call for anyone who thought investing in Chinese tech was a safe bet. There's a geopolitical angle to all this. These companies are realizing that the era of unchecked growth might be coming to an end. The idea of tech sovereignty is gaining traction. More countries are thinking about how to control their digital destinies. They're asking themselves, do we really want foreign companies controlling our data, our communications, our digital infrastructure?
China is a market economy, and it's a vibrant market economy, but it is not a capitalist country. Here's why. There's no way a group of billionaires could control the Politburo, as billionaires control American policymaking. So in China, you have a vibrant market economy, but capital does not rise above political authority. Capital does not have enshrined rights